Alrighty, welcome to this week's show of This Week in Birding and Nature Photography. My name is Stephen Ramsden, and I am the director of the Charlie Bates Solar Astronomy Project. Hello, Alexandra. Hello, Margaret's sister. Hello, Buddy, Stevie. We got a good turnout this week. I appreciate all of you. Stan Chapman is our guest this week. Everybody knows Stan in the local area. Alexandra, you may not have met Stan yet, but he's Stan Alexander's in the UK, and she's a great friend of our program. We always start our meeting by talking about a few awesome things from this week, and that's what we're going to do. So this is the Charlie Bates Solar Astronomy Project, for those that don't know, and our domestic in the US affiliate is Sunlit Earth, and Sunlit Earth is a registered nonprofit 501c3. And we teach people about sunlight in nature. We teach people about, oh, here comes Rafael Colon from the Dominican Republic. So this is Rafael. The Solar Astronomy Project, for those that don't know. He's always got background noise. There's Rafi. And we teach people about nature in hopes that they'll understand better about the sun and get outside with their family and friends and really just enjoy what we all already know about nature and how much we love it. So there's no better way to relax and forget about your problems than to get out and walk around in nature, in the cold, and have a good time. So this week, we've had some really amazing photographs. I'm trying to find the one from Steve Rushing, and I can't find it. But Steve, if you would find the photo of your Cedar Wax Wings popping, I'd appreciate it. And we'll let you share that in just a minute. For now, get out and walk around in nature. Okay, somebody needs to.
Stephen, I'm getting that bad.
So this week, yeah, I know, because somebody is needs to mute. I'm trying to find the one from. Yeah, you. Okay, no problem. All right, so we'll get to you in just a second, and I'll stop talking, and you can do yours. But for now, just stay muted, Stevie. There you go, sandhill cranes flying over everywhere around town. If you look up in the sky and you see a V-shaped flock of birds making what sounds like a drunk turkey sound, those are sandhill cranes. And unfortunately, Southerners used to call them the ribeye of the sky, which is a ghastly comment for me, but I guess people used to shoot them and eat them. But you'll see these by the thousands flying south right now. And they like to land in fields, sod farms and things, and eat grass seed. Very docile birds, goofy looking birds, identified by their little red stocking cap that they're wearing. So those are everywhere right now. We had this absolutely stunning photograph of one of our favorites, a red-winged blackbird, on the page this week. This is a great shot, and I think these birds are present all over the world. This is a really cool bird. They're more of a nuisance to some people than anything, but at night around any body of water, these birds will flock up and they'll take off by the hundreds right at sunset and go to roost somewhere. And it's just a really marvelous thing to see. The red-winged blackbird. They also have a really distinct call, and they're eating me out of house and home at the nature preserve. We're putting about 30 pounds of seed per week in the feeders, and it's gone before the end of the week. In fact, we've got so much seed in them that the platform feeder actually collapsed last week. So we had to put a thicker post in to hold it up, which I did. Now, I want to share two other photos. This photo, let me get to it. You can see I'm an IT whiz. Purple Finch, very underrated bird. That looks a lot like a house finch, which is way more common. But this time of year, we get the purple finches that come through. And this is from our own buddy Harrell. Just a fantastic job of processing. A beautiful bird. You start out with great data. You always end up with a good photo. And this has got just the right amount of topaz and experience and processing. In my opinion, this is just a remarkably good photograph. The eye has got the beautiful reflection of a cloudy sky. You can even see the trees in it. The females and males will be mixed in with other birds, and you might see 3 or 4 of them at a time this time of year. Purple Finch. Looks like somebody dipped it into some strawberry jelly and pulled it back out. A beautiful bird. And thanks to Buddy for doing that. I'm working about 8 different things here right now. And last but not least, it's that time of year for one of my favorites, the northern flicker. Sherry Rosen from our Sunlit Earth page posted this photo. You know, it's just a typical view of the northern flicker, because you look up and you think it's just a standard woodpecker flying around, and then you notice it's wearing an ermine coat. It looks like royalty, and there's the flicker. These animals have a red and a yellow tail, depending on which one you're looking at, but most of ours are yellow shafted northern flickers, or as my father-in-law, Natalie's dad, calls them, the yellow hammer, because they got a yellow tail and they sound like a hammer on the side of your house. So that's the old Southern name for that. And of course, according to him, any bird that's red is a red bird, and any bird that's blue is a bluebird. So that's the Southern names. It's very easy to remember all these. Steve, did you have that photograph of your Cedar Wax Wings?
No, I think it might be better if can you pick it up off of?
Yeah, let me find that real quick. Alexander, how's it going over there in the UK while I search for this photo?
We're getting lots of birds in the garden now, because we had 2 weeks of very cold weather and snow. I've seen a few siskins on the
Siskins.
And lots and lots and lots of blue tits, great tits, cold tits, long-tailed tits, everything. So it's sort of like everything, you know, like all the blackbirds have been coming in for apples. So it's like very busy.
We have none of those here. I would love to see the little blue tits, because every time I see a photo of them, they're just beautiful.
Oh, well, they at the moment, what they're doing is you're obviously getting big flocks of them, but they're starting to drift off into little pairs. So there are like 2 of them, and they'll be chasing each other around the garden, and they'll sort of like go into the bushes with each other and then come back out, and then they'll chase around and then do a little dance. We've been watching them go all around the garden together, so it's really sweet.
Raphael, what's happening over there in the Dominican, man? You got any more magnificent frigate birds for us?
That's exactly what I have to tell you. Right now, I'm in Punta Cana, the place where you were when you visit here, and I got a lot of picture of the frigate, magnificent frigate, beautiful picture, but I took just some minutes ago, so I could not process it yet.
So, you know, we would lose our minds here in the United States for the magnificent frigate bird. In fact, like I said, we had one this past summer in a local lake, and just hundreds of people went to this lake. And I spent about 30 hours trying to find it and never saw it. But they just fly over your house all the time and land at your feeders and stuff, right? You probably can have one perch on your arm if you wanted to.
Have really, really good shots. So maybe the next week, I'm going to be showing this picture.
I can't wait to see it. And Alexander, I'm guessing the magnificent frigate bird is not very common at your house either, huh?
Definitely not.
Raphael, do you get any albatrosses in the Dominican Republic?
Not really.
Oh, come on, man.
We have this.
Well, that's fantastic, and I can't wait to see your photographs of that bird. And we talked about Steve Rushing's shot of a couple of Cedar Wax Wings. I'm going to share that with you. Steve, just tell us what this is.
Well, it's 2 Cedar Wax Wings, and as I said in my post, if this was April, I would think it was what's called courtship hopping, where the male feeds the female by hopping up close to her and turning his head, and she feeds, and then they hop back and forth a few times. But January, I don't know, maybe they were just getting to know each other, getting ready for spring or something.
Yeah, maybe they know something we don't know, and they're trying to get it going early. Yeah, I've never seen that behavior, but I have seen hundreds and hundreds of Cedar Wax Wings this year, and most of them by going up to Sewanee to that trail. I forget the name of it. You know, I'm probably just noticing more than I used to, but I've just seen hundreds of robins flock together, hundreds of waxwings, and hundreds of blackbirds just everywhere I look right now.
Well, I've got thousands in my yard. And I think one of the reasons you're seeing more of them concentrated is we've had a vintage crop this year of green hollyberries and Terra laurel. And they are just ravaging my yard, you know, by the thousands.
So follow the food source, huh?
Follow the food source as usual.
Raphael, you need a haircut, man. Hey, Raphael invited me. Raphael runs our Dominican chapter of the Charlie Bates Solar Astronomy Project, where we teach solar astronomy to students around the world. And I've been to visit him a couple times, and he's in Punta Cana now, which is a beach resort for rich people in the Dominican. And he arranged a condominium for us to stay there for a week, my wife and I. And we went and did some birding, and we hung around in Santo Domingo on the previous trip, and on Punta Cana on the last trip, and just had a great time. I need to get back down there and go birding. And as soon as I can get a vaccine in my arm, that's what I'm going to do. But like everybody else, we're all just kind of holding our breath, you know, and hoping that things get better and that we can go out and travel again. So I wanted to say before we started, thank you to everyone here and all our viewers for watching our program. It's a labor of love, and I've met some of the best friends in the world through this program, and you guys are, a lot of you are here right now, and I'm very grateful for you because, you know, it gives us something to do and a little bit of social interaction without having to wear a mask, and you guys are awesome, so thank you. This week's guest, Stan Chapman, is overall a nice guy everyone loves, and when you see him at the preserve, you can't miss him because he's about 7 feet tall, and he is just a super friendly guy. He has led our bird hikes when we used to do them in person, and he's got decades of birding experience, and just a really friendly, inviting person who I think epitomizes what our program is about, because we want more people to come and enjoy what we love so much. So I'm very grateful for Stan taking the time to come and do on our show. I saw him at the Nature Preserve while I was putting in the new post last week, and he volunteered, like he always does, to lead another bird hike. And I said, well, we're not doing those right now. Why don't you come on the Zoom show? And he said, okay. And he probably didn't know this, but Stan is an IT super professional. He's like the most advanced computer user I've ever met. He makes Zuckerberg and Bill Gates look like rookies. So he's gonna, I'm kidding. So he's gonna be on our show, and we're gonna talk about some of his stuff. Stan, you're a native of New Jersey, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And how many Bon Jovi concerts have you been to?
Precisely 0.
Very good.
I can talk real Jersey if you want me to talk Jersey, yeah.
Well, you
I
know,
just had a cup of coffee. Yeah.
That's not really necessary. I'm just letting you know now. But, you know, I dated a girl from New Jersey for a long time, and they all identified themselves by what exit they lived off of on the turnpike. Is that something that they did in your time in Jersey as well?
Oh, yes. And also the Parkway, you know, Cape May is a great birding area, and
Yes.
it's right at exit 0. So it's the southernmost exit on the Garden State Parkway.
Right. My girl was from
New
exit
Jersey is
8.
actually a great place to bird. But,
Yeah, absolutely. And Stan's internet connection has got his voice a little delayed from his lips. So it's real fun to watch him because it feels like you're watching a karate movie on old TV, because he's like, I'm going to get you. So it's really cool to watch, and you all enjoy that too. Stan, we met at the Nature Preserve, and of course, you were immediately super friendly to me, and I appreciate that. And I've learned a great deal from you birding, and we've also been birding a time or two in other places together. How long have you been doing this? And why are you so nerdy?
Well, I started birding, I was trying to think about that in preparation for this little talk. And I think 48 years. I was a graduate student at Emory when I got started. So almost my whole time birding has been, you know, here in Atlanta. So I cannot tell you how many times I've been to Clyde Shepherd Nature Preserve. As a matter of fact, I looked at eBird and I saw that I have 305 checklists.
Wow.
Probably saw you at most of the last like 30 or 40 of them.
So you've
So it's
probably
been quite a while. And when I start talking about the birds, I'm going to give a little bit of historical perspective about how the bird composition has changed in the 48 years that I've lived in Atlanta. It's really changed quite a tremendous amount.
So did you go birding at the Clyde Shepherd Nature Preserve before it was the Clyde Shepherd Nature Preserve?
Yes, and before there was any sign to designate it. Yes, I mean now I don't know whether you're partly responsible for that beautiful sign that's out there that I'm going to show in a minute, but yeah, it was just a wetlands that belonged to the Shepherd family, and they allowed people to come on it. They're apparently very generous people. For those of you who don't know, Clyde Shepherd is the person who started the Shepherd Spinal Center, which is a rehabilitation center for people with head injuries and multiple sclerosis and similar kinds of problems in Atlanta. And I believe his family still owns the preserve, but has been kind enough to let it be used and stay wild, for whoever wants to come.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that sign, Stan, because the sign you're going to show a picture of, I did not make the sign, but that sign was destroyed during our last series of 3 hurricanes that came through in November and December. And I did rebuild the sign and put it back up. And the day I did that is the same day that I was broken into and all my camera gear was stolen. So that sign has a special significance to me. And we're still waiting for replacement camera lenses, by the way. But, Clyde Shepherd Preserve has been a meeting place for birders for a long time. And I really hate that it's getting a bad rap now because of some of the break-ins, but I promise you that that's going to stop very soon because of some things that have happened of late. But before we go any further, we should probably just go ahead and specify your favorite Star Trek character before you start your lecture, because we have our standards here. So so what series and what captain?
Can I just give the politicians frequent remark in response to a question of no comment? Because I don't know.
We had this conversation already, and Stan is yet another friend of mine who doesn't watch Star Trek, so I'm getting real depressed about that. But we're going to give you a pass on that because you've got so much knowledge about birding. Stan, your wife is in the other corner there, Margaret's sister, and is that Margaret in the background? Hey, Margaret.
Yeah, she's waving, yes.
And how long have you guys been
married? Margaret. We got married when we were 64 years old, so
awesome.
6 years going on 7. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I got married when I was pretty old too.
Will you still leave me? Will you still need me when I'm 64 during our wedding day?
Outstanding. That's great. So what would you like to share with us today, Stan? I'm really happy to have you on. I'm going to go ahead and switch you to the main view.
Okay. And the only thing I'm nervous about is the IT aspect. So let's just hope it works out. Okay.
Well, don't worry, because I've got plenty of jokes to fill in the space if something doesn't work.
All right, there we go. I think it is going to work out. Yeah, so here's the sign that you fixed up at Clyde Shepherd Nature Preserve. And I'm going to talk entirely today about the things that I have seen of interest over the years.
So it's not sharing, just so you know.
Oh, okay. It's not sharing.
Yeah, we don't see it.
You don't see the sign?
No. Try again.
You see the map?
No, we don't see anything except you.
Preserve?
We see you only.
Oh. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, let's try.
So there you go.
Let's try this.
There you go.
Okay, and
now we see a white screen.
Okay.
And we're in no hurry, so take your time.
Just get it working before he starts on his jokes. That's all I ask.
Oh. Okay.
Everybody's a critic. So just stop
Whiteboard.
sharing and then try it again.
Okay.
All right, now we see you.
Okay, now do you see the sign?
No.
No?
So you hit the share button and then you choose the window you would like to share.
Okay. I will
Or
try
you
again.
just share the whole screen like we talked about.
How about now?
We see a white box, so with nothing in it. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to just stop sharing.
Okay, stop share.
All right, click the green share button.
Got it.
And then choose screen, the first entry on the upper left.
Got it.
There you go. Now we see it.
Oh, okay.
And you don't have to go back and forth between you and the screen because we can see your video also to the right of this.
Okay, so you can see the sign now that says Clyde Shepherd Nature Preserve.
Yes, sir.
Oh, excellent. Okay. All right. Well, Clyde Shepherd's a remarkable place. You know, it's tucked away in a middle-class suburban neighborhood. And it's got a beaver pond, a creek, woodland trails, and now it's got a great sign. It's not that huge. It's 28 acres, and like other places, it can be incredibly birdy or frustratingly quiet. You know, as you probably noticed yourself, Steve, depending on the day. My best day ever birding there was when I led an Atlanta Audubon bird walk right during the height of spring migration, and the group saw 69 species that day. But on other days, I've seen as few as 15. I think it's very fitting that I focus my presentation on this because of the yeoman's work that Steve has done. As a volunteer, it just amazes me, you know, the number of feeders that he's installed, is keeping them full, is putting in security cameras, doing a lot of excellent maintenance work. You could be a policeman also for all the people with the dogs that don't have them on the leashes that drive birders crazy. So when you asked me to give this presentation, I just absolutely could not possibly say no.
Thank you.
So here is a map of the preserve, which I believe is also you're doing, Steve. It shows this small beaver pond, which is where a lot of the good bird sightings have been. And there's this trail that goes along the South Fork of Peachtree Creek. There is a whole array of feeders, thanks to Steve, that have been very, very active. There's a little classroom, little amphitheater for people to learn, and lots of trails that go through the woods. There's also a bit of a wetlands area here on the edge of the pond, and right here is a really nice observation platform where people can stand and look out over the pond and the wetlands. Now, I want to focus first on rare birds, and you probably think that I am absolutely crazy to be depicting this bird as a rare bird. I'm sure a lot of you can tell me what bird it is.
Bluebird.
Anyone?
Eastern
yes,
bluebird.
The eastern bluebird, and it's certainly one of the most beautiful birds around for its color. But when I first moved to the Atlanta area 50 years ago, nobody saw an eastern bluebird inside of Interstate 285, which is called the perimeter highway that makes kind of a big circle around the Atlanta and its suburban area, because it was exclusively seen in the fields. As a matter of fact, the first Christmas bird count that I went on, which was in 1976, this bird was seen in greater prevalence, the greatest number in the Atlanta Marietta bird count than anywhere else in the world. But never, it wasn't for 5 or 10 years that I saw one inside of Interstate 285.
Wow.
And now, you know, all of us residents of this area know that it's extraordinarily common. You can walk through any suburban neighborhood, look up at a telephone wire, you have a good chance of seeing it there. You hardly ever go to Clyde Shepherd and look at the feeders without there being one around. And who knows the reason that all of a sudden this bird so unheard of inside 285 has become so common.
Food.
Oh, anyone? So
Maybe.
nest boxes, so many people have put up nest boxes that now there are tremendous nesting opportunities for this bird in the Atlanta area. So no longer is it a rare bird. And so here's another bird that that in some years could have been considered a rare bird, but not this year. People know what this bird is?
Pine Siskin.
Exactly. It's the pine siskin, and I have this old bird book that has a map of the range of the pine siskin, and Atlanta is well south of the range of the bird. It has it's wintering kind of in the mid-Atlantic states and not further south. And I can remember even like 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years ago that very few of these were seen in the winter. As a matter of fact, it would sometimes be posted about on Georgia Birders Online for local birders to find out about. And I know some winters I have failed to see a single pine siskin in the Atlanta area. But this year is like no other. They can be seen absolutely everywhere, almost everywhere I've been, every trail, every nature site or preserve. There are pine siskins, and I happened to be a Clyde shepherd at the time I saw Steve reinforcing the platform feeder, and there were 20 of them there on that particular day. So this is an invasion year.
Yeah.
And birders refer to that with a very technical term, an eruption. It starts with IRR, eruption, not to be confused with an eruption like from a volcano. But apparently it happens because this bird's food supply up north is not present. Its favorite food consists of the seeds of cones of hemlock trees and spruce trees. Of course, we don't have too many of those in Atlanta, but apparently there's a very poor cone crop this year. So, much as we might come down to the south for some barbecue or fried chicken, this bird has come down south for actually the seeds of our pine trees, and particularly like seeds of old pine trees. And Clyde shepherd has a lot of old pine trees. So it's kind of a rare bird that isn't.
Hey,
now you just showed a picture of this bird,
Just-
so everybody should know what this one is, because you just depicted it.
Hey, Stan,
It's
just briefly, there's a little bit of delay. Everything's working great, but when you ask a question, it may take a few seconds for someone to unmute and then answer you. So don't worry if it does. It's not an awkward silence. And this is a purple finch.
Oh, okay. I thought it might just be a not too intelligent group here, but
Well, maybe that too, except for Alexandra. She's very smart.
Just joking. Yeah, until I retired and really started birding a lot, I was certainly in that category of being somewhat ignorant of all these birds. But anyway, Steve showed another photo of this a few minutes ago, and this is another bird that has kind of erupted a bit this year. It's the purple finch, and there's kind of an interesting history of this bird in Atlanta also, because when I moved to Atlanta in the early 1970s, this was the dominant finch in Atlanta. And if you happen to see a house finch, here's a house finch, that you would put that on the rare bird alert for sure, because that was a bird of the Western United States that was never seen here. And then gradually over the years, we saw more and more house finches and fewer purple finches, until reaching the point, maybe 10 years ago or so, where you might, if you went birding pretty frequently, just see 2 or 3 purple finches the whole winter. But not this winter. They're quite common, and there's sometimes people confuse them. I think, Steve, your description of this is looking like it was like dropped into, I think you said strawberry jam. I've heard raspberry, but in any case, either way, that it's pretty uniform color on the underside of the bird and the breast, and down to about the belly, whereas the house finch is very bright red on the throat and above the eye, but otherwise is pretty much brown. And I think the females are even easier to tell apart. This was a purple finch that I photographed at Clyde Shepherd near the feeders this past week. It's very strikingly white underneath. It has this very clear white eyebrow. Birders like to, sound really important and call it a supercilium. So if you want to sound really smart, you can call it a supercilium instead of an eyebrow. Whereas the house finch is a very drab, nondescript bird, and almost looks like you're flunking an eye test when you look at it, because it has very blurry markings on the back and on the breast and belly. These streaks are very blurred, and it's not nearly so white. It's kind of an off-white in color. So now both of them this year, neither one of them would appear on a rare bird list in Atlanta. Well, who knows what this bird is?
Steve Rushing, you're muted.
Oh, he's muted. I saw his mouth moving.
It's the Eastern Towie pale-eyed.
Hey.
Exactly. Boy, Steve really nailed that one. Yeah.
I just happen
really
to have,
unusual. Yeah, go ahead.
I just happen to have a pair in my yard, which is very unusual for DeKalb, as you're about to say, I'm sure.
Yes, you beat me to the punch. I took this picture. It was actually of this house that abuts Clyde Shepherd. As I was leaving, I said, "Oh, that bird is just nicely teed up on, on this bush with flowers, and it was in perfect lighting. So I think I can get a good photo of it." And it wasn't until I put it on my Flickr site and someone commented on it that I realized that this was the really unusual white-eyed race of the Eastern Towie. It used to be called the rufous-sided Towie. Now it's called the Eastern Towie. Though Steve has them at his feeder, Steve Rushing, I actually have not seen one since I spotted this bird in 2015. But you might want to keep an eye on the Towies, because the huge majority of them look like this. They have kind of a red eye, certainly not white at all. And this white eye is very, very striking.
Stan,
Go ahead.
The red-eyed version is the one that dominates above the fall line, and the white-eyed or pale-eyed, depending on who's speaking, is usually below the fall line, deep in the South Georgia and Florida Peninsula. But it's been documented that as part of the climate change, they have been moving increasingly north over the last few years, and their range is expanding, or the northern leading edges is expanding. It's very similar to the black and white warbler that we're seeing periodically at Clyde Shepherd. They've moved a little bit further north as the average winter temperature has gone up.
Yes. Yeah, so this is one to keep your eye out of. Look at your Towie, see if you can see this much more unusual white-eyed Towie. Maybe, as Steve said, it's going to become much more common if global warming persists and continues. Now, I saw this bird at Clyde Shepherd on May 10th in 2020. And can anyone tell me what this bird is?
A cuckoo.
It's a cuckoo, yes, but it is not just an ordinary cuckoo. This is your ordinary cuckoo that we see, actually can see it all summer long in the Atlanta metro area in the right habitat. And it's called the yellow-billed cuckoo. And you can see sort of the lower mandible of the bill is yellow. But for every one of these that's spotted, you see at least 100, I would say, of these, because this is the really rare black-billed cuckoo. Perhaps the rarest bird I've ever seen at Clyde Shepherd is like the first one to see it. So I think it's a little bit more beautiful than the yellow-billed cuckoo, because it has this wonderful red circle around the eye. But it only stayed around for about 30 minutes. So I'm a member of this group called DeKalb Bird Chasers, where you can send a text to everybody else who's a member of it. If people hear of something really rare, they come running. And within about 5 minutes after I'd sent this text, there was another birder there, and within 15 minutes, about 3 more were there. And those 3 and myself were the only ones to see the bird. It was only there on May 10th, as far as anyone can tell.
Yeah, I was there with you, man.
It flew off after about 30 minutes, and the next 15 or 20 birders that came to try to see it were out of luck. So that was a really unusual sighting at Clyde Shepherd. And how about this one?
Yay, my favorite.
Yeah, the American bittern, and it just showed up in spades this past spring. There may have even been more than one that appeared. It's one of my favorite birds, and every few years or so, it appears at Clyde Shepherd. Sometimes it's seen in a few other sites in the Atlanta metro area. I saw one last year at near Echo Lake. There's a little marsh across the street from that, and I saw one at Murphy Candler Park. But it is a really neat bird. It likes these grassy, marshy wetlands, and its favorite spot is places with reeds, because its coloration camouflages it wonderfully from reeds. And sometimes when it's seen, particularly in the nesting season, it will stick this bill straight up vertically in the air, and it will look almost exactly like one of the marsh reeds. So it's a really neat finding, but not nearly as neat as this guy. That it is its relative. And this picture I took from the observation platform at Clyde Shepherd. It was all the way across the pond. It appeared for just a few seconds to show itself and went running back into a thicket. And the date was April 17th, 2013. And this bird is the least bittern. It is also in the bittern family. It's much different from the American bittern. This is a 28-inch long bird. I just looked it up in the bird book. This is only 13 inches, about the size of a common grackle.
Right.
And this particular sighting at Clyde Shepherd, that my friend Jeff Sewell was the one who saw it. I happened to be at the refuge at the time, so I was really fortunate. It's the only one of 2 ever seen in the metro Atlanta area. The other was in 2016 near the town of Conyers. So it is one of the truly unique findings at Clyde Shepherd. It did stay around for a second day, but it's so secretive. It would only put its head out very occasionally. So some people who came to see it had difficulty finding it, even though it was here. Now this bird was just the opposite, extraordinarily cooperative. It's called the Least Flycatcher. And it was so close to the observation platform that it looked like it was almost going to land on people. And it showed up in April of 2020. And I think it was here for a couple of days. Dan Vickers is the person who originally saw it, and he had a great photograph of it too. This is my photograph. It belongs in this category of flycatchers that are called Empidnax Flycatchers that all look almost exactly alike with just very minor differences. This one tends to have a really big head and a very bold eye ring. And fortunately, it was making some noises. It has this song that is just as monotonous as this bird looks. Its song is like chebek, 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 chebek. It might do it 100 times in a minute, just over and over again. But it was another of the rare birds that if you go to Clyde Shepherd often enough, you might see some examples of. And then there are some birds that are rare birds. Exactly. Somebody knows what that one is. No mystery about that one. This is actually not that rare in the area or in Georgia, but it's very rare, Clyde Shepherd. And this one hung around in 2013. It seemed to really like Clyde Shepherd. It was here for months, although it often was pretty hard to see in the refuge because it tended to hang around in a pretty thick brush. As you can see, it's a male turkey, and then after a few months it left. maybe because it was unhappy there was not a female turkey here. So it was only the male that was seen, and I'm not aware of any other turkeys being seen at Clyde Shepherd, the whole time that I've been birding there, and certainly none since 2013. Now, this is one of my better photos. This comes from October 2015. Does anyone know what this bird is?
Alexandra, can you tell us what bird this is?
Well, it looks very similar to, very much of a cross between a snipe and a woodcock.
Absolutely. And by the way, Stan,
Alexandra,
the name of the bird is up on the top left part of your screen.
Oh, is it?
you're telling
Oh, yeah,
people how
snipe.
to-
Oh, Wilson's snipe. Oh, I can see.
Yeah, it
Sorry.
used to be called a common snipe. Now it's called a Wilson snipe. And this is also a bird that's kind of uncommon, but seen in various places in the Atlanta metro area. I saw one at Constitution Lakes last month. For those of you who are familiar with South DeKalb, Pole Bridge is a place where in the wet field there where there are often a whole bunch of Wilson snipes, but I think it's only been seen once this particular day at Clyde Shepherd. It was the lake had dried up by October, so you could actually walk all the way across where the pond was, and it was in that area where the pond had dried up, and I was able to get that photo of a Wilson snipe. It's a bird of kind of wet marshlands and wet fields. So there it was. Now, this is not a rare bird, but this is one of my very favorite birds at Clyde Shepherd. I would put it in the uncommon category, maybe. And of all the places in the local area where one might go, Clyde Shepherd, as far as I'm concerned, is the very best location for this bird, which is called the brown creeper. And one of the reasons it's my favorite is because it is a master of camouflage. And you can see how if this bird doesn't move, you could miss it so easily because it looks almost exactly like the tree trunk, which is of course by nature's design. Well, fortunately for birds, it usually does move. It loves climbing up tree trunks and climbing down, sometimes upside down. And I think it's rather prevalent at Clyde Shepherd because it feeds on the seeds of the pine cones. And I was reading it really likes old pine trees, and we have a lot of really old pine trees at Clyde Shepherd. So it's a really neat finding and an example of camouflage, but not the only one. Here's a pretty common bird of the preserve, the hermit thrush. And as you can see from this photo, it likes to, like other thrushes, like robins, it likes to hang around in the leaf litter. And it does not stand out very well among the brown leaves. And of course, it's here only in the winter time. Fortunately, it helps us out in seeing it by occasionally coming to the feeders at Clyde Shepherd. And I did see one at the feeder just this week. But I understand the streaking of birds helps to keep it hidden from predators, as well as the rather plain coloration. So that's a common bird too, a pretty common bird to look for at Clyde Shepherd. Now, to me, birds are not just interesting because they're rare, because of weird things that they do sometimes. Now, this bird, is one of the most common birds in all of Eastern North America. And you can see it almost any day you come to Clyde Shepherd, particularly early in the morning when it hangs out around the pond. And of course, it's the great blue heron. But you don't often see it sitting like a dog, almost like on its haunches. And so I snapped this photo just because I thought it was so unusual. I had not seen a great blue heron sitting like this, postured like this, before or since up until this year when I happened to be in Florida, and there was one sitting on top of the bush. So I realized this was not a completely unique occurrence. But I think the most unusual occurrence regarding a great blue heron at Clyde Shepherd occurred in the year 2011. And again, at that time I had an old camera. It was all the way across the pond from the observation deck. And I'm certainly an amateur photographer, so this made for a very amateur, blurry photo. But this great blue heron, which is renowned for taking aquatic prey, small invertebrates, fish, and so forth, was dining on a mouse. And something also I've not seen before or since. So I guess it was getting its source of protein in whatever way it could. So another interesting sight. And every once in a while, I see something that cracks me up. I had been watching the Olympic Games, and the Summer Olympics has these synchronized swimmers, where these women stick their legs out of the water, and they all look like just so. And for whatever reason, these mallards that were dipping into the pond in order to eat some of the duckweed or whatever plants that were a little bit under the surface, ducked down and posed their tail feathers for me just beautifully. So that really cracked me up. Now, this bird is not that uncommon at Clyde Shepherd, and I love it because it interested greatly my oldest granddaughter. Her name is Audrey. Interested her in birding because she thought that it was so impressive, and I told her it was the largest woodpecker in North America. I'm making an assumption that the ivory-billed woodpecker really is extinct. I think the odds of that are pretty darn good. But this woodpecker is very impressive, and there's a pair that hangs around Clyde Shepherd. I see one or the other of them quite frequently. And who could tell me if this is a male or a female woodpecker?
Looks like a male to me.
That's right. Looks like a male to me also. It's got this.
I can tell
red
because
here.
his mouth's not open.
Oh. Steve, you got my wife to come to this, and after that comment, this might be your last visit.
It's not yelling at anyone.
But, yeah, the female would be black across here rather than red. So I include this photo. I thought it was one of my better photos, and anything that can lure grandchildren to develop an interest in nature, I'm all in favor of. And speaking of which, that same day that we saw the woodpecker, this was in April of 2019. We went to this very famous at Clyde Shepherd owl box, and this owl box has been up for many years. I know my friend Ralph Smith put up quite a few of the owl boxes. I don't know if he put this particular one up or not, but for about 5 years running, maybe, there was a barred owl that nested regularly in it. And I understand, Steve, you put some cameras inside this box so that
I did.
People could see the, yeah. So my granddaughters got to see, two of them, Audrey and Clara, got to see this this baby owl, sticking its head out of the nest hole shortly before dusk, and we're very impressed by the cuteness of this bird. Unfortunately, in 2019, this owl box stayed empty, and I think the owl should already be nesting by this time this year if they were going to, and it still seems empty. But there are still a lot of barred owls to be seen in the preserve. I hear them calling from time to time.
Yeah, Stan, if I could interrupt and tell you that the male or one of the owls was there last year for the month beforehand, and the other owl never showed up. And then this year, neither owl was back there. But there is an owl family on the creek trail that I've seen almost every day for the last 2 weeks. There's 2 owls up in the tree limbs, but it looks like the box was not used last year because one of the mates probably died or whatever. So it's been a sad thing, but I'm sure they'll come back.
I hope so. Yeah, I know it's been a tremendous draw for people in the community, and people love taking their kids and grandkids, and and of course adults like seeing these birds also. We have to admit. So it's certainly caused I think a great increase in the number of people who visit Clyde Shepherd. So maybe next year, hopefully they'll be back. And of course the sheep. Kids and grandkids love the sheep that have been imported into Clyde Shepherd actually rented, the sheep are rented for their ability to eat the English ivy. I'm sure Alexandra knows all about English ivy. And that they also are very good at devouring the privet, which is a non-native species. I'm really quite amazed when I see the areas that are fenced and how these sheep really eat all these plants down to the nub. But they're great fun to see at the preserve when they are here. Perhaps a somewhat less friendly mammal that, that I have seen 3 times at the preserve is this one, the coyote, which does hang around local neighborhoods and has actually killed 17 cats in the neighborhood that I lived in a few years ago, much to the chagrin, obviously, of the cat owners. And there's been a lot of controversy about whether the county should do anything to try to get rid of these coyotes, and the county has decided not to. But every once in a while, you will see a coyote at Clyde Shepherd Nature Preserve, which for me is a great treat. As a matter of fact, once I saw 3 of them together, a black one colored like this, and a kind of a white one. And that was quite an interesting sighting. Unfortunately, they scurried off before I could take a picture of them.
Stan,
yeah, go ahead, Steve.
To join the controversy maybe a little bit, I actually root for the coyotes. It's kept
Me too.
A feral population of cats out of the preserve that would have come in from down where the old Quick Trip or the new Quick Trip and so forth. And back when that old horse, or the horse farm is on the other side of Scott, but it's kept feral cats from coming down the South Creek corridor.
Well, that certainly is of great note. I'm not sure if anyone read about the controversy a few years ago. I read about it in the newspaper of the war between the cat lovers and the bird lovers in Galveston, Texas, that there was this nesting snowy plover habitat on the beaches in Galveston, and the feral cats were destroying all the plovers, and that's a critically endangered bird. And it turns out that the toll taker of the causeway that separated Galveston from the mainland, toward Houston, liked to feed the feral cats every day, and he spied a bird lover shooting the feral cats that were coming after the snowy plover babies and raiding the nests, and ended up suing them. And ended up to be this big legal controversy about whether somebody could shoot the feral cats or not. And this rather whimsical story about them said that it was a hung jury. It was like 6 bird lovers and 6 cat lovers. And the person who shot the feral cats managed to go free because of the hung jury, much to my joy. So I'm with Steve. I tend to root for these other creatures rather than the feral cats.
Yeah, I'll do this quickly. Peter Merrill, who is my son's advisor and former director of the Smithsonian Migratory Bird Center, wrote a book. We lose maybe a billion birds a year into the feral cat population and other threats like that. He had to have personal protection when he was going out doing book signings because he had death threats.
From cat lovers.
From cat lovers. Yeah.
Crazy cat ladies threatening to kill him. Yeah. Nothing personal, Alexander.
And people, I certainly have heard enough comments about we being like crazy bird people.
And, no, we're right.
Started,
they're wrong.
It was judged to be a very unmasculine thing to do, and like some people kind of hid the fact that they were interested in birds. And this friend of mine in college who was a bird lover, and it actually had seen more birds in North America than all but a few people, managed to keep it hidden from everybody else his whole college career that he was interested in birding. And then once I left college and went to visit him at his house, he took me to a local preserve and got me hooked on birding. So it certainly has become a much more common, well-accepted hobby over the years than it used to be, at least in the United States. I don't know if the same thing is true in Britain. I know people call birders twitchers in Britain.
Twitchers.
Uh,
Hey, that's a tree frog, isn't it?
That's a tree frog. Yeah, another example of camouflage beside the brown creeper and the hermit thrush, and you know, a nice sighting at not an unusual one at Clyde Shepherd. But one thing I love about being out in nature and birding is that it forces you to be alert and attentive. You know, this frog is only a couple of inches long, and you know, could easily be missed walking by. So here's some fungi that I thought were really neat. You know, one day following a lot of rain at Clyde Shepherd, I just liked the way that they looked and the way that they were arrayed and their mixture of colors. So there's something here for nature watchers that are non-birders. Here's a Gulf fritillary, you know, one of the really common butterflies of the area, but really beautiful. Yep. At Clyde Shepherd, and right in perfect light for this particular photo. And of course, at Clyde Shepherd, we also can see the classic monarch butterflies, you know, who have this absolutely incredible migration from many places throughout the United States down to this one location in Mexico where they spend their winter. But they definitely pass through Clyde Shepherd, particularly in September. I've seen them, and here's a photo that I shot. So all in all, Clyde Shepherd's a great resource and an asset to the local community. And I really appreciate your attention to this presentation. And I have great appreciation for, you know, for Steve, who has kind of taken it under, it sounds like a pun, doesn't it? Taking it under his wing to, right, say, there he is, to, you know, to help really improve the preserve. I can't say how grateful that I am, Steve, for all that you do. And I appreciate everybody's attention, and hope to see some of the local folks, you know, out here at the preserve when I go out. So thank you.
Stan, that was very informative, and I had no idea about some of the species you mentioned that were rare then and are very common now. I had no idea of that stuff, and I knew I was the reason I wanted you on here, and I learned a bunch of new things from you, and I appreciate that. I was going to play something, you know, go back to the coyote thing. I know that you're not as frequent on Facebook as some of us because you're more intelligent probably, but here's something that the security cameras caught just last week when we were taking down, or when we were looking at video of the robber at the preserve. We caught this video. These are three coyotes, 1, 2, 3, and there's a bunny, a bunny rabbit running for its life. The coyotes ate it and then they took off. So, and I've gotten at least a half dozen videos of coyote on the security cameras since we put them up. That is just crazy to me. Here they come out of the preserve again. 1, 2, 3 coyote. And you know, you mentioned about the blonde colored coyote that runs around with the other two, and I've seen them. I have a picture of them from 2 years ago at sunrise, right over there by the new bird blind. So when you said that, I knew exactly which coyotes you were talking about. You know, the least bittern, boy, that was awesome. I'd love to see that one. And some of the other really weird stuff we've seen have been minks at the nature preserve. People walking their dog without leashes, which has become a much rarer species there.
Thanks for you.
And
the enforcer.
Well, I'll tell you, everybody here almost has done something. Everybody in the U.S. has done something to help that preserve, either through donating through the program to the preserve. Steve Rushing's family's done a great deal to help. You know, it's people come through in different cycles and do things to help. And I feel like I'm of some benefit to my own hobby that I love by spending time over there and helping. So I feel like it's the least I can do. Buddy and and Connie, and I mean, everybody here has done something for the preserve. So we're going to get through the rough spots with the burglaries. Although technically those have not happened on preserve property. They've happened on the public street outside the preserve. But Steve Rushing's vehicle was also broken into there, as well as mine. But we do have video of the suspect, and we do have search warrants signed, and I can't really say anything else except that he will be apprehended in the next day or two. He's driving his girlfriend's vehicle, and this guy that's been doing it is very violent. So I'm glad we did not run into him, because he's got a history, a very long history of violent crime. So that's going to be taken care of shortly. And I've been out there almost every day picking up trash, and I'll wait around until about 1 to leave to let people know, you know, don't park over here because there's no camera coverage over there. Come over here and park on this side. And we haven't seen him in about a week and a half. But hopefully that'll get better.
The authorities know his name, Steve? They know his name?
Absolutely. We know everything about him. The only thing we don't have is an address, which I don't think there is an address, because he's using his girlfriend's car, and he probably doesn't have a home address. So they have been looking for him with definite identification for about 4 days now. But I hope that I don't find him, because the guy is very, very violent. I don't want to run into him. You know, I mean, obviously I'm a super mean, tough guy that could take care of myself and kick all your butts. You know that from just looking at me. But I don't want to have to do that. You know, I want to share it with the police. Now, I don't want nothing to do with this guy, because he's carrying a gun. He had a photo of himself on Facebook wearing the same exact outfit he was wearing in the burglary video where he's breaking into a car. That's how dumb he is. So anyway, that's another story. But Stan's wife and Margaret's sister, here's the question we all want to know. How do you put up with all this birding? Well, you're muted. You're muted. There you go.
I welcome it.
It gets him out of the house for a while, is what you're saying.
Sounds good to me.
That's what my wife says too. She says, well, you could be at the liquor store or the strip club, and I'd rather you were out birding with your buddies. So Connie, what's going on over there with you?
Well, I have had a frustrating problem recently solved. About 6 weeks ago, all the birds stopped coming to my yard. I mean, no birds all of a sudden. My feeder sat there full for 2 weeks, and I was like, what is this about? And what it was about was there was a mockingbird that lives here all the time, but had suddenly decided to protect this feeder.
Wow.
And was driving me crazy because I could not do anything to change this pattern. And tried several things. And the thing that finally worked, I set up a diversion feeder. Well, I moved feeders so that they're on all sides of my house instead of being clustered at one spot. That didn't do anything. And then I set up a diversion feeder with just mealworms in it. And I had to move it several times. And then one day I got it to a spot that he started protecting that feeder instead of the ones I want to look at. So for the moment, that problem is solved and all of my birds are back. But man, was that a frustrating problem to deal with.
I've never heard of it being that severe. I've been dive bombed by them a million times. We have one that nests in the bush in front of our garage. And while he's in there with his nest, you can't walk by it without him dive bombing you. But yeah, that's really weird.
Well, it turns out I've discovered finally that there are 2 mockingbirds in my yard, and I don't know if they're mating or if they're competing for control of my yard. Right. Normally, I only see one.
So they're either fighting or mating. And,
yeah, one or the other.
I mean, we're all married here. Is there really any difference, you know? I mean, Connie, I appreciate you checking in with the show. Rafi, is that a coconut tree behind you, man? Are you really trying to punish all of us?
That's right. And there is a lot of banana quid.
Banana quids in the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks for rubbing that in. I appreciate it. Next week's show, Stan, thank you so much. Very informative. And this will be recorded and posted on Facebook for posterity's sake. And next week's show, we are going to have Donnie Screws and his son, police officer Chris Screws from Eastman, Georgia. Why, you might ask? Well, because that's where we saw the broad-billed hummingbird about 3 or 4 years ago. And they put out an invitation to anyone who wanted to come look at the bird, very rare bird for us. And they made sandwiches for everyone. They had a cooler outside. They were serving people free soft drinks and tea. And it was one of the best experiences I've had in birding. They've got a magnificent, gigantic feeder array in their front yard. And his son is a policeman in Eastman, Georgia, and an avid birder that I've been birding with many times. So we're going to have Chris and Donnie on the show, and they're going to do some live video from their feeders in the yard. And that should be lots of fun. So that's the show, unless anyone would like to chime in and praise me some more like Stan did, because I feel really important now after all that praise was heaped upon me.
I just want to praise Stan. Thank you.
Oh,
Stan.
come on. Yeah,
I've got a quick question.
please.
When you were talking about the bittern, that you see them some years and other years not. In the UK, we've had, a drastic decline in bitterns. And what they did was they did like scientific research and found that they would only inhabit and breed in a marshland with a certain depth of water, and it had to be within 2 inches or they wouldn't breed and they would vacate it. So what they've been doing on like all the RSPB reserves is they've been managing the water flow so that they keep the water always at this particular level within 2 inches. And now they're getting up to about 100 pairs of bitterns breeding in the UK. So I was wondering whether you'd ever actually monitored the water level at Clyde Shepherd and tried to correlate whether at a certain depth, that's when you see your American bittern.
Short answer, no. Long answer, we do have water meters we installed in the pond this past summer for that reason, to monitor the water table. And I was not aware of that. And that sounds like a great idea. And I'll remind you that this is the USA, so we don't care about the environment. So we're not going to spend any money doing anything. I'm of course kidding, but that probably wouldn't go over too well in Georgia. But we should look into that. And Steve Rushing's got ornithologist's son. Maybe we can get some more information from him.
I was just thinking that this was a new job for you. You can go feed the feeders and check the water levels. But it is interesting that we see the bittern about the same time of the year.
Yeah.
And water. I think we could find a correlation, Alexander. Thanks for the tip.
That's a good point, because it does come
because
when the
they
water's
found
up.
that they found that they would only breed when it was at this certain level of the water. So I was just wondering whether if you wanted to try and encourage, maybe, I don't know whether the American bittern is the same, but maybe you could encourage them to breed at Clyde Shepherd if you got the water level exactly right for them.
Well, I'll tell you this, 3 years ago, was it 3, maybe 4 years ago? I think it was 3 years ago. We had a pair there that were ran off by an off-leash dog who attacked them, and they never came back. And then the following year, they came in early spring, at least one. And then this past year, they came in early spring, but came again in November. And the only thing different was we had water in the pond this year in November, where normally it was dry.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good point.
A hypothesis my son would kill me for this, speculate, but it probably back to the food source. It might have something to do with the population of the crawfish there.
Right.
There's been enough water for them for a period of time for the crawfish.
Yeah, that's excellent, because I don't know if the bittern cares how deep the water is as much as maybe the crawdads or the crawfish care more about how deep the water is, and they're more active and easier to catch. That's a great thing, Alexander. I'm going to call it the Alexander Hart study and commission that immediately.
Your measuring stick and measure it.
Yeah. Well, I have a pair of waders that I bought just for walking out there and picking up beer cans and people's cigar wrappers. And I'll get my waders out and just mark the water on my waders. But I did almost get stuck out in the middle of the pond this past winter when I walked out to pick up a beer can that had been bugging me for 3 weeks. And the mud came all the way up to my knees on both legs. And I'm a big guy. And let me tell you, I almost did not get out of that. I almost got stuck in the mud in the middle of the pond and had to call somebody to like throw a rope and tow me out of there. But I'll be a little more careful about that. But that's something I'm going to look into right away. And Steve, I do need some new things to do with the preserve, man. I don't have enough work out there. I feel very useful doing those things. So we have.
Speaking of the bidder, I thought it was really extraordinary that Mary Kimberly saw an American bittern along the South Peachtree Creek Trail boardwalk in January. Connie, I think you looked for it on the Christmas bird count, didn't you? And it had gone. But, you know, but all the just about all the other bittern sightings we have had have been during migration. You know, especially spring migration.
Right.
You know, so they've been en route to somewhere else. But I don't expect that many birds are migrating in January. So I was really surprised that that one had been spotted.
Yeah, I spent about 8 hours out there in the same spot that Connie went to the day after the sighting, and that did not see the American bittern at all. But it was nice to sit out there.
You know, it would Stan's theme about changes over time. When we first got involved with then South Peachtree Creek Preserve, then Clyde Shepherd, the privet made it more of a dryland, and is only after the privet's been knocked back, that the wetland nature of it has really started to come back. So now we're seeing, you know, the fox sparrows and other more of the water thrushes and so forth than we saw, you know, 15, 20 years ago, because the water table is staying a little higher throughout the year as it goes back to, and we'll get rid of the invasives and get back to some of the natives.
Yeah, and that's been a group effort with everybody there. Removing privet is no fun, let me tell you. So I want to say thanks again for everybody being on this week's show. And we are about 15 minutes past our hour, but it's such an interesting conversation. Again, join us next week for Donnie Screws and Chris Screws live from Eastman, Georgia, where they're going to talk about some of the cool birds down there. And you have been watching This Week in Birding and Nature Photography on Sunlit Earth. And I bid you all a fond farewell, and we will see you again next week. Thank you for tuning in.